Welcome to Backstage with Becca with special guest, Tara Kostmayer. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca. On this episode, this California native graduated from the University of San Diego, has performed in several shows on the Disney Cruise Line, played Diana in New York City Center's Encores line, was a vacation swing for the national tour of Aladdin, and is currently on the national tour of Wicked, where she plays Nessarose. Please welcome Tara Kostmayer. So, how is life? You're currently in Houston, yeah?
In Houston now. It's good. It's hot here.
Yes, it is.
But I don't mind the heat so much, so I'm surviving a little more than everybody else. But it is kind of brutal.
Yeah, and Houston hot is like humid hot.
Yes, yeah, it's very humid, very oppressively hot, but it's okay. I mean, luckily, I'm in AC right now, and I do love the sun. So I would rather take it being hot than being like rainy and sad. So I don't mind too much.
Yeah, the sun makes everyone happy at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Where you are on the East Coast, or?
So I'm from Dallas, but I live in Burbank, California.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm from California originally too, so.
Oh, nice. I saw a lot of California stuff on your resume, so I was like, she must be from California.
Yes, I am. Went to school in San Diego, which is like not exactly near Burbank, but it's in that SoCal region, I guess.
I love San Diego so much. It's so stunning.
It's my favorite city.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's stunning.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask, first of all, have you always known you wanted to be a theater performer? And when was the moment that you realized that it was something you loved to do?
Ooh, that's a great question. I didn't actually grow up like knowing I wanted to do theater. I started dancing, but it was when I was young, but it was always kind of like just a hobby. I was very academic, and I went to that was kind of my career path, like from the get-go. I always thought I would like be a professor or be a doctor, and I actually went to college to study neuroscience to be a doctor. So I was pre-med, but while I was in college, actually, there was like a musical theater club, because we didn't even have, my college didn't have like a musical theater program. They just had like this club that was totally student run, and they were doing Rent, which I had heard of and I loved. And so I was like, oh, I'll audition for Rent, and like, let's see what happens. And pretty much, and I was able to get in, and pretty much since then, I grew so many good friendships through that club, and it was called Muir Musical. And I just was always involved every year. And so by the end of it, I was like, I really like this whole theater thing. And by the time I graduated, I just was like, okay. And it was kind of a really big decision because, it was a very different career path than like what I had been set on. But by the end of it, I was just like, okay, well, let's see. Let me audition for some things locally, which is probably like what you saw in my resume, the more California credits, and like see what happens. And yeah, thankfully I was able to get some work. And by the time I booked a Disney Cruise Line, I sort of decided, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this full time. And I'm like, yeah, this is going to be my thing now.
Well, and you always have the pre-med thing to brag about. That's really impressive. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a great, I don't regret it. Sometimes I think I'm like, oh gosh, I could know so much more about my craft if I had gone to school for it. But, I looking back, I don't regret it. I learned so much, and I feel that it gave me a very different perspective, and so, yeah, it was a great time. It was a hard learning experience for sure, but yeah.
Wow. And I saw a lot of dance classes like on your resume when you went to San Diego, to the school in San Diego. So how did you manage to keep up with like those dance classes while doing pre-med.
Oh my gosh. It honestly, oh, it was challenging. And it's, maybe some people can do it all, but I can't do it all. So, there's always something where it was like, okay, I might be staying up a little late to try and read this textbook so that I can like make my dance classes. But honestly, it felt at the time, it felt a bit of like a release, like, oh, thank God. Like I used it kind of as like my mental break, or a time where I didn't have to just be in my books. I could get into my body. It was sort of like a moving meditation in a way. So for me at that time, it was a bit of a release from everything. So I was happy to have the balance.
Yes. Do you have a favorite style of dance and why?
That's a great question. I probably, ooh,
You're like, I can't pick all of them.
I love them all. I grew up really loving ballet, just because it's just so pretty and like so sweet, and I'm such like I love I love like the dresses and the jewels and all that kind of all of that stuff. So, but I think hip hop. Yeah, I think
Ooh.
probably hip hop. I think that's the style I've enjoyed the most in recent years. Also growing up, my brother was like a break dancer. And so like, I feel like I was introduced to that culture kind of early on and kind of grew to really appreciate that. Yeah.
Did you ever like learn any like cool breakdancing moves?
I think I tried. I tried really hard, but as the dynamic usually with the older brother and the younger sister, it was usually like, show me the breakdance moves, and he was like, no, like this is just for me and my friends. And I was like, okay.
Oh,
So I was a spectator a lot.
yes. What was your favorite show that you did at the University of San Diego or like around the area regionally?
Yeah. Favorite show.
I mean, you mentioned Rent, which is like and you played Mimi in Rent?
I did, yes.
Yes,
I did.
so that's a huge role.
That was incredible. That was just, it was just like, it was my first musical. And so it might have to be that one, just because it was like the first time I'd ever been in that atmosphere. And it's, Rent, it's so electric. It's so emotionally, you bond so much with your castmates because of like the material of it. So yeah, it might have to be that one, just because it literally changed the rest of my life. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the first show that would set me on this whole path.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's an iconic show for your first show, like to be in for your first show. Oh my God, wow.
It was great. And I'm still really good friends with, like, to this day, and I'm still really good friends with a lot of people that I met in that show.
I love that. I love the bond that like theater creates, because like it's such I feel like it's a big community, but it's also a small community at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know it's ever growing, but the longer you're in it, the more you just start recognizing people in every show that you do, or you're like, oh, she's
Yes.
cool. You make those connections.
Yes, even as like an audience member, as a fan of theater, you like go and see shows and you're like, wait, I think I've seen like half this cast in another show.
Yeah, right. I
Yeah.
know.
And it's like in a whole different city too, you saw them. So that's
Right.
really cool.
I know. It's wild. It is kind of like a nice little community.
Yes. So you talked about the Disney Cruise Line and you were on several shows on the Disney Cruise Line. So what was uh what made you say yes to going on the Disney cruise, besides of course like those commercials, they like drag you into wanting to go on one all your life.
Oh my gosh. Well, at the time, I was just kind of, at the time I auditioned for the cruise, I was really in a very difficult place. Like I was working at like a law firm to just, to be able to like, I know I was like a secretary at a law firm, like trying to just like, you know, make ends meet. I was still in that awkward transition of like, am I really going to commit to doing this? Should I go back to trying to pursue science? Like, not making enough money, trying to pay off student loans, struggling to pay rent. It was very much like a challenging time for me. And so, I was going to any and every audition I could. I even auditioned for like the Disney parks at one point, to be like a princess and all that stuff. But so I was just taking every audition I could. And at the time, Disney Cruise Line was just one of the auditions that I was going to. Honestly, didn't think anything would have come of it. But I was like really hoping that because it just has so many great things about it. You get to travel to so many places. You get to, make like to the idea of like being able to actually make a living just performing, not having to like work the side jobs, not having to like go to the law firm and try and audition at night, was just a dream to me, something that at the time I couldn't even fathom. So yeah, it was a lot of, it was all of those things that really drew me to like, oh gosh, I really hope I can book this. And I really didn't expect that I would be able to. I thought it was going to be one of those auditions that one of the many, but
just another one, because you get so used to just like going into audition, and it's like auditioning is a full-time job even of itself.
Yeah, and you just kind of get used to the rejection a little bit. But yeah, thankfully it worked out, and I guess I had whatever it was they needed at the time, and so yeah, it was such a gift, really, though.
What Disney character was your favorite to play on board the cruise, and why?
Yeah, so my main role on the ship was a character that was like a made up character named Nicole. She was kind of like because they
kind of originate a character or something. Yeah.
But they sort of like have these review shows where they have these made up characters that kind of go on this journey. And I honestly might say her, because even though she wasn't, that typical, like, a character from a movie, she was really fun to play. She was like this teenage girl. So it was really fun to kind of like get into all of the wackiness of that story. And I formed some really good bonds with some friends in that show that last till this day. So I'll say her.
So my question when I see like when I interview cruise performers, is that like, how do you keep your balance on a stage on a cruise? Because you're in moving water the entire time. And so the stage is kind of moving.
Yes, it is. It is. And what's the crazy thing though, is that it's easier to keep your balance when you're dancing, when you're moving, which sounds strange, but it's when you're staying still and you're just standing in one place that you really feel movement. But once you start moving around, it's almost like you're moving with it. So it gets a little bit easier, but it is kind of an odd sensation, like jumping and then landing in a place that you didn't jump from. You know what I mean? Because the ship moved underneath you.
You're like, now wait a second.
Yeah, I know. You really have to gotta have a strong core some of those rocky sea nights.
I feel like I would just like fall flat on my face, and it would be fantastic. People would be like, oh my God, what just happened?
There were many a time when I was very close to doing that myself.
Coordination is key in those moments.
Coordination is key, and trying to keep the nausea down.
Oh my God, yes. Do you have a favorite, do you have a character, a Disney character that you want to play on stage one day that you didn't get to play on the cruise?
Yes, Esmeralda.
Oh yes, love that. And I feel like that is close to coming to like a Broadway stage, or at least or hopefully a national tour.
I know, I would love that. I actually saw that show I went to UC San Diego, and it was at La Jolla Playhouse, which is on the campus. And so I saw that show, I think like I shot like 4 times or something. I loved that show. And yeah, it was just amazing. And even before that, I always loved her character because I love a strong female character. You know, we all do, who can like take care of herself, and yeah. And also she dances like a little bit, which is kind of fun.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You described why I love Megan Hercules.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's another one if I had to choose, which, you know, is
Yes.
is in the process. So that's kind of
It is,
exciting.
and I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love Hercules and I love Megan. Wow.
That
Obsessed.
was I'm actually surprised that took so long. And that was one of the first movies I thought would
Right.
become, you know,
Yes.
but
Exactly.
glad
But
we're doing
they had to do Belle and yeah, all that first.
it.
I
Right.
feel like Tangled is also like something that would be really good on stage too.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And kind just like the one song, the I See the Light song would
Oh, it would be so
chill.
gorgeous.
Give me chills. Yes.
I love that.
So, um, you joined the national tour of Wicked in February to jump into Wicked.
Yes.
What was your audition process like for Wicked? You played Nessarose, which huge character to play, and Wicked's on everyone's bucket list immediately, and when they fall in love with theater.
I'm definitely the same. Always was a dream show. And Nessa specifically was a dream role of mine. Love all the characters, but there was something about her. I was like, I want to play her one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the audition was really interesting. I actually, this was actually my first and only time having auditioned for Wicked.
Oh my gosh.
And so I actually was sent in a self tape for Nessa. Gosh, I think it was like somewhere in the spring or summer of last year. And it was, yeah, it was great. You know, did the Nessa stuff, sent in the tape, and I got a call back, but I actually couldn't attend the call back because I had something else. I had a conflict, and so it was kind of one of those things where I was like, oh no, like, well, you know, hopefully this opportunity will come around again, and we'll
Yeah.
see. You just never know. But I sort of had put it away, and it actually wasn't until I was doing Aladdin where my agent messaged me and was like, check your email. And I was like, okay, like had no idea what to expect. And I booked the job. And so it was definitely, yeah, such a surprise, such a gift. I was so grateful. It was kind of wild because at the time, I was, you know, I was like really praying, like, you know, God, me in that direction. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I'm here with Aladdin right now. Am I gonna stay here for a little while? Am I, you know, what's coming up? And like literally a few days before my birthday, I got
Birthday.
yeah, and I was like, oh, what a fun present. Like
Yes.
it was really cool. But it really taught me, you know, that you just never know. You just never know what's gonna happen. You never know where
Timing.
things can be. And yeah.
Yes. So I feel like I do have to jump back to Aladdin real quick because how iconic to like do a Disney cruise and be in Aladdin. That
Yeah.
and you're a vacation swing in the show. So what does a vacation swing do for people who don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So a vacation swing is basically the responsibilities are like a regular swing where they have to learn all the parts. But they actually don't move with the tour. So they're kind of, yeah, they're kind of,
Like
you know,
here.
at home, and just in case like they need extra coverage, whether it be for like another swing or another ensemble member that might be out for vacation or out for medical leave or something like that, they'll call these people in, you know, from New York to come in and sort of be with the tour for a little while. That was me.
So you have to be prepared to like pack in like 2 hours basically and head to the
Yes.
airport.
Yes. And that was that. Yeah, it can be a very quick turnaround for me. I think I found out that I had to leave, or I found out that I might have to leave. And then I think 2 days later, I left. So it can be a very quick turnaround. Yeah.
Wow, I cannot imagine like the stress that puts on someone, and like then jumping from like one environment to another, like New York environment, to like, hey, you never know where the tour is, so it might be a completely different like it might feel like a completely different season.
Totally, totally. Yeah. And I know it's a bit of a whirlwind. And I'm trying to think if I've ever had I don't think I've ever had an experience like that in any show where it was like, okay, drop everything, you got to leave on Monday,
Yes.
But it's a wild life. I had to get like all of my shifts at work covered, and I was like, okay, I'm sorry I can't make it, but I need to go.
I gotta be on the Aladdin tour.
I know. It was like, yes, I will gladly get those shifts covered. But yeah, it is kind of a wild gig for sure.
Do you have a favorite memory from that time?
Oh, yeah. One that comes up was it comes up right away was like my happy trails, which is like, when we leave,
Yeah.
when we leave Aladdin for Wicked. And everyone was so sweet, and they sang For Good for me and, as I left, and I just sobbed,
Yes.
I had no idea they were going to do that, so they surprised me. And yeah, that's definitely one of the ones that stays in my heart for
Oh
sure.
my gosh. Yeah, instant tears if someone starts singing For Good.
Instant tears, let alone I'm like, oh gosh, when am I going to see you all again? And yeah.
Yes. So getting back into Wicked, I have to ask, when was the first time you saw Wicked? And do you remember the first Glinda, Elphaba, and Nessa that you saw in the show?
I feel you know what? I have such a bad memory. I actually don't remember, because I actually barely remember when I saw it. I know that I saw it with my parents in San Francisco. I saw the tour. In It was probably like sometime around 2000, somewhere between 2006 to 2010, probably somewhere in that range.
That seems right.
I could probably like look online and figure it out, but
That's, I was about to type like it in and be like,
I'm sure it would be. It's like, when was it in San Francisco? But I saw it at the Orpheum, and again at the time, like I wasn't into theater. My parents, I think my parents aren't super into theater either, so we never saw like shows all regularly. But for some reason, they were like, we got tickets to this Wicked thing, and we're all gonna go. And I was like, okay. And so, but it was life changing. It really was. I remember watching it and just being amazed, because I'd never seen any kind of show like that. It was my first professional show I'd ever seen. I fell in love with Fiyero. I like went home and was like, I have to learn popular. Like I need to learn all the songs. Like I was just obsessed. And so, yeah, I remember having, even though I don't remember exactly when or who, I remember having a wonderful time. And yeah, just being absolutely blown away.
well, I mean, how can you not, when, especially like during Defying Gravity, when she goes up in the air and you're like, oh my God, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yes, it's so all encompassing, and you're just so present. And yeah, I loved it. I remember thinking at the time, like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be amazing to be up there? Like, I can't even imagine what it would be like. So it's very full circle.
Yes, it is. Oh my gosh. Wild. I'm sure you're like, wait, this is real every day.
I know. I count my blessings every time and even on the days where I'm tired, or, it's more challenging than other times, it's like, look, I am in Wicked, and this is incredible. Like I'm so happy to be here.
You're like, can't complain, can't complain.
Yeah.
So what was the rehearsal process like joining the tour? Because I think you joined the tour with several other cast members.
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm sure it's fun, like stepping into rehearsals with everyone new who's joining the tour. And then do you you get to like watch the show as rehearsals are happening to kind of like learn certain things and pick up certain things?
Yes, yeah, we do. We have our, rehearsals in like a studio, in a rehearsal studio with the dance captains and like the stage manager and stuff. And then usually at night we'll watch the show, whether it's just like, backstage because we're trailing people and seeing, the backstage traffic, or we're, maybe in the stage manager's office watching it on the screen so that we're able to like take notes. But yeah, it was a really interesting experience. It's my first time learning the show separate from everybody. I think every other, because even with Aladdin, we were launching this
Oh,
new
yeah.
second, national tour. And so I still learned the show with everyone in the rehearsal room all at the same time. So this is my first time kind of like just me and the dance captain, like, him being like, okay, now you go to this number and and just like writing it all down. So it was a really interesting experience, but I'm really grateful to have been able to do it with, my other company members that were coming in at the same time, because then it was nice to be able to just have somebody else in the room to kind of
Right.
with and go over things with if you needed. So that was nice.
I imagine getting like the stage direction from the dance captain at that point is like, don't bump into the invisible person who's supposed to be standing right here.
That's exactly what it's like. And you're just like, okay, I have to remember I'm going to hold this person's hand and then I'm going to hold another person's hand. And you just kind of have to mime everything until you're finally on stage.
You're like, I think this person is going to stand right here. I don't know.
Exactly. I know. And it's funny when you finally do meet those people on stage at like the put in and you're like, oh, okay, nice. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm supposed to
Right. Like, I've been rehearsing with an invisible person. Now I get to meet a real person. Thank you.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yes, love that. So, what was the day you made your Wicked debut like? And how exciting was it? I mean, I'm sure you kind of like black out at that point too, because you're like stepping into a huge show in a huge role.
Yes, it was incredible. It was uh yeah, I loved it. I felt really grateful that I felt very prepared for it. I think that, our our team, they just did such a good job of rehearsing us. And so by the time it came, I was like, I'm just excited now. Like I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get out there. And yeah, it was just so surreal. Being able to, actually have that real audience and be in the costumes and be like, wow, I'm this person now. And everybody is just always we always get so excited when people debut because like to have that fresh energy. So the whole company was just so supportive and so excited for us. Yeah, it was really sweet.
Yes, and I have to ask because it took me forever to realize this. So, when did you realize that, like, when during the rehearsal process were you told that Nessa is in the opening number of the show?
Oh, right away. Because this is I think it's the first
It's
thing
the
we
first
learned.
thing. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, because I was like, it literally took me like seeing it 10 times to figure it out. And I was like,
Oh,
oh, and
I
Pierre too. And I was like, oh, okay. That
Yarrow is, Walk is, like
yes.
pretty much all are. I mean,
I was
except for
like, oh my God.
I know. It's it's I know it's so funny. It's a fun like little Easter egg. And yeah, so I was like, oh, okay. But I honestly love the fact that she's an opening number, especially for the debut, because to be able, it helps to kind of like feel that sense of community that you're like with everybody, you're really interacting, especially in Nessa's role, because it can be very isolating. She does a lot of her stuff, just with Alphaba or like mostly with Bach. She doesn't really get to like dance with everybody. So it was really nice to be able to have that kind of like camaraderie and you get to really connect with like the rest of the ensemble in that moment. Yeah, I know. And it's kind of fun to have that little surprise.
Speaking of fun, Nessa's a very like three-dimensional character.
Mm.
So, and she changes a lot from act one to act two, especially from the beginning of act one to act two. So
Yes.
how do you go about making a character like Nessa your own after like all these years?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know, that's a great question. I definitely think, you know, I definitely watched a lot of Nessa's. Like I did a lot of research on, the different choices people were making. And so I think like, I gained a lot of inspiration from the Nessas that came before me, and like being able to watch like Kimmy like in person went before well, I was still learning the show, I just, and it teaches you a lot about like, oh, wow, you can take these lines into such different directions and make these different creative choices. Um, so yeah, I find it's helpful for me. Some people like to have a completely blank slate, but I think it's helpful to kind of like look at, the predecessors and different choices that they made. But yeah, I think that a lot of it is just a lot of it was very playful. I would just kind of play a lot with, what is my first instinct of how to go about saying this line. And then I would kind of play in different ways. I would say, I'm like, okay, what is it like if I say this line slower? What is it like if I say it angrier? If I say it, with this thought in mind? And so I would kind of like play in these different ways and sort of try and choose, okay, I really liked this aspect, I'm going to keep that, I'm going to keep this thing from that. And I sort of puzzle pieced it all together, and just and it's still constantly changing. I mean, even to right now, I'll listen back to myself and I'll be like, okay, I think I want to start, you know bringing this emotion into this line a little bit more. So yeah, it's something that's really fun to play with. It's yeah, constantly shifting and growing as I go.
Yes, and I can imagine that it's different depending on like who's on stage as Bach and Fiero and Elphaba and Glinda. So how does your Nessa change depending on who's on stage opposite you?
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's absolutely true that, yeah, when you have someone new, I kind of like really, it forces you, you're listening all the time, but it forces you even more to like really listen, and be present with what they're giving you and how they're, saying a specific line. So I think it just makes you a little bit more like alert in like a good way, in a way where you're just really fully present. And I love it because it forces you to kind of really connect back with your instincts, and react, and really react to like what they're saying.
Yes, and I'm sure especially with the Glindas because like the comedy there and the comedy aspect of like you never know what how a Glinda is going to say a certain line on stage when
Hmm.
you're on stage with her is completely like it makes it fun, I'm sure. Every
Oh,
night.
it's so
New and
much fun.
different. And,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're like, am I gonna completely die out laughing on stage tonight?
I know. There are some moments that happen where you're just like, okay, hold it in. I'm not supposed to laugh.
Not supposed to laugh, stay in character. Hold on. Yes.
Yeah, but even stuff that like the ensemble bring too, because we're like improving and bringing life to the scene every day. And so sometimes people will just say a different improv line, or say, interact in a different way, and that brings a whole new energy to like that scene for you.
Yes.
Fun.
So that brings up what is your personal favorite line or moment in the show? Like both Nessa line and just a line in general.
Ooh, line in general, I I have down pat. I say this all the time. It's in Wonderful when the wizard says, the truth is not a thing of fact or reason. The
Oh
truth
my
is
god.
everyone agrees on.
Yes. Oh my god. I just that song has so many moments where you're like, "Oh my god."
Right? It's like it hits you. You're like, oh, okay. It's like that, which is so funny because it's such like it's kind of like a light upbeat song, but it has these really heavy truth bombs that you're like, oh. And I just think that that line sums up the show, or at least a really big theme of the show, of like, what is the truth? Who is wicked? You know, what is real? Like, is it what everyone's saying is real? You know, and it just forces you to really question how you see things, question, you know, what's your source? Who is it? Authority saying this? And yeah, but I just love that, because it's like, wow, that's so true.
Deep.
Yeah, deep, deep.
Very
And Nessa, gosh, one of Nessa's lines, she does have some good ones. I think,
I love Act Two so much. The beginning of Act Two, Wicked Witch of the East scene is just like,
oh, I love it. I think I'm gonna I really like when she says, when she's singing back to Bach, and she's like, lost your heart, we'll see about that. Because I
yes,
think that's really the moment in that scene where things
turns.
take, you know, there's like snippets of it earlier, you feel the tension building, and then it's in that moment where like stuff is different now. like, like now I feel differently, and it's being able to kind of like, oh, get to play that emotion is really fun.
Speaking of ways like that you can change up the lines every night, honestly, because that line, I feel like you can mess around with it and have fun and like make it darker one night than the previous night. And
And I've learned so much from this character, that, you know, there's so many different ways to express the same emotion. You know, for example, it's like you can be angry and you can yell, and people are yell when they're angry, but there's also times when people are quiet when they're angry,
mhm,
you know, or people speak really controlled, but you can tell there's that building, and that's anger too. And so I think in that scene, I really discovered like, oh wow, there are so many different ways that you can deliver this same emotion, um, but take it in a totally different direction.
yes. How do you think you're like Nessa, and how do you think you're different from Nessa?
Oh, I hmm. Oh my gosh, it's like, what is this about to say about me, right? but
You I'm yeah.
no, but I
Yeah.
understand. Like, I well, I definitely think, oh, because Nessa is
That's
kind of a funny character.
uh-huh.
Um,
Nessa's a lot.
I know.
She has to deal with a lot. So like
Yes,
I
I
got
feel
you.
like, you know, I think Nessa, here's what I'll say. I think that I think that Nessa really wants to have control over her situation. I think she's
Yeah.
in this position where she is kind of helpless all the time, because, you know, she's in the wheelchair, she has to have people help her constantly, she's always depending on other people, and I think she just wants, she's like, please, can I just have a normal life? I just want to have a normal sister, I want to have a normal, you know, experience. And I think that, you know, all of that, and I can definitely relate with that, because I'm very much like, I can be that type A person where it's like, I just want things to be perfect, I just want things to be, you know.
Yes. Yes. My like schedule has to be like in sync and stuff.
Yes, yes. And so it's like, I can very much relate to her in that. I think she's just like, I just want everything to just be normal and perfect, and if it can just go the way I planned, like, and I'll go to the ball with Bach and it'll be beautiful, and my sister won't show up and it'll be great, like, you know. I think that, I think I'm different than her in the sense that, so in that sense, I really empathize with her, and I empathize with, you know, what she goes through, because, you know, I don't think she's just wicked for no reason. Like, I think she's really in pain, you know, and she's
Yeah.
sad. So I really do empathize with her
Life
by
has
the end.
not been easy for her.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I'm different than her in the way that she like interacts with her sister. I feel like I would, you know, even though I can understand where she's coming from, as an actor, like I definitely probably wouldn't make the choices she does about how she interacts with Elphaba, because I feel a little bit bad about like how
Extreme-
embarrassed.
Extremity, for sure.
Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, but it is really interesting because yeah, she is that kind of three-dimensional character. And so she doesn't make the best choices sometimes, but I can understand like why she's hurting.
Yes, yes. You're like I sympathize in some ways. Yes,
Yes, yeah.
yes, but she's a little extreme at some time.
Yes, yeah, she can get kind of intense.
Extreme, just a tiny bit. It's fine. If you could play any other character in Wicked, who would you play and why?
Fiero, I would play Fiero.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, I do, like I said, I grew up dancing, so I love the whole like dancing through life number. It's just so fun. And I just love the idea of like playing like the cool, like, the cool guy. And I just think it's just so funny. I love his character, and I love his like his yeah, his heart in the show, but also being able to kind of like put on that like, yeah, I'm like the
I'm suave and
guy
sophisticated.
story. Like I would definitely choose him. I think he's a fun one.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my god, the beginning of Dancing Through Life when he's just like dancing everywhere on the stage and like circling the stage. Like I'm like, oh my god. He must
I know.
every fear must have so much fun with that.
I know. I love it. I love it. And I just yeah, I feel like there's so many guy roles that I love. I'm like, oh, I want to do that.
I feel like every Fiera must also like have fun listening to all the high school girls after the show be like,
I know. That was so me when I saw the show. I was like, oh my gosh,
like
I just have to find my Fiero.
right, right. It's like it changes your entire mindset when after you see the show for the first time and you're like, wow, that Piero guy is perfect.
Yeah, right.
Wow, need. So, Wicked is a show that has been open since 2003. What do you think makes the show as successful as it is and makes people come back to see the show? Because the show gets a lot of repeat audience members.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I think it just, I think it definitely just delivers that musical feeling that you want. Like it has the spectacular of, Elphaba flying, of like the lights, the costumes, like it just has that beauty to it. So even if I think people who have never seen the show, because we still get so many people who've never seen it before, they they can fall they can fall in love with it just based off that alone, because so many people have never seen something so spectacular, like all at once, like in this all-encompassing environment. So I think that alone is exciting for new people to come and watch it. Um, and I think just the story, it's such a good story, and it's just so smart to play with the Wizard of Oz, which is, a classic. It's a movie that people still show their kids and they grow up on it. Everybody knows that movie. So to have a story that gives you a different take on that really allows people to kind of find those Easter eggs. And I think it gets people coming back because they're able to watch it and discover new things every time, and find new connections and fall in love with new characters at different ages, and find themselves in these different characters too.
So back you stated that perfectly. So I just thought of a question. You're backstage like every night listening to all these songs, like literally, I don't know how many times now. What is one song in the show that you will never get sick of?
Ah, it's so cheesy, but defying gravity.
Yes. You're like, it's coming.
So thrilling. And like, even now, like, there are things that I realize about this song, but also like the staging that I've never noticed before. Like, for example, when she begins to fly, like the guards come out and they all fall to the ground. And I don't know why, but I never noticed that before because I was so focused on her. But I was, watching a rehearsal, I was like, oh, that's good. Like, it's just this ultimate, like, thrilling moment. The music is perfectly matched to the drama of that's happening on stage. It just all like comes to this perfect pinnacle. It's just like pure musical theater glory.
Yes. Also, I was gonna say, like, something I'll never get sick of. It doesn't really count as a song in the show, but like the ending after bows when like the orchestra's playing, chills.
Yeah, I know. It just works so perfectly. It's so well written. That music, it's just there's something about it. It grips your heart, you know?
It's genius. It's genius. Yes.
Mhm.
So, before I move on from Wicked, what is your favorite thing about being on the road so far? And what is something about life on tour that people wouldn't know?
Oh, favorite thing about being on the road is definitely, I mean, eh, it's seeing all of these cities. I mean, I don't think I was rehearsing in DC, and I've been to DC before, but I and I've been to Orlando, but I think like since then, like I haven't really been to any of these cities before. So I'm going to a lot of these places. Like I've never been to Texas for the first time, and just being able to really like just travel, like while I'm working, it's like such a gift. I get to see all these places in a year that some people, you know, rarely get to travel to. So it's definitely like being able to see all these different parts of the US. It's great. Um, and then something about tour that people wouldn't know. Trying to think. It's it's challenging. The kitchen is challenging. That's what I'll say. So
Oh,
yeah, like you, something that like you kind of realize when you're on the road is, how am I going to cook for myself? Because I like to cook like elaborate meals, and
oh my
and you
God.
realize like, oh wait, all of my spices and my sauces and my mixers and and my food processor, they're all at home.
Not here.
And so it's like some people deal with it different ways. Some people, they're like, okay, I'm just gonna cook super plain, it's just going to be like, salt and pepper, and that's all I need. I, on the other hand, am that
Like,
person.
yeah.
I am that person that is traveling, I think like 20 spices and like 15 different sauces in her trunk. That is the
Someone's asking you to borrow stuff.
Yes, yeah, I'm that person. I'm like, if you need cumin, I'm here for you. You need rice vinegar, sriracha, I got you. Like, because yeah, that's something that I didn't expect. That would be taking the majority of my space, is like all of my food stuff.
I absolutely love that because I feel like people like my go-to on tour would be like, I'm gonna go eat out after. And
Right, right.
it would be very bad because I feel like you're like, wait, but I can't spend a ton on just like going to eat out all the time.
Every time. I know. It's so easy to think like, it's so easy to get into vacation mentality
Mhm.
because you're like, oh, I'm traveling. So it's like vacation. But then you have to remember, like, right, I can't eat like I'm on vacation every day.
Every
Like,
day for like months and months. Yes.
yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I got to get a carrot in here or something.
Self-control, self-control.
Yeah.
It's hard. So, who inspires you in the theater world?
Oh, so many people. My gosh. Well, first off, Leia Salonga was a huge inspiration for me because obviously I'm a Disney person, always was. I feel like we all are now. Like, but you know, and I think that I just loved her voice, and I think I definitely learned a lot of how to sing from her. And she's also Filipino, and so am I. And so it was just so cool, being able to kind of see that representation, you know, at such a young age. And yeah, so I definitely say she's a huge she's one of like the bigger inspirations for me. But also, like that's definitely, you know, like someone I looked up to, that I didn't know. But I will also say that like I actually get hugely inspired from like my peers and from the people that I do know. Like some of my best friends who are in the business, like like they really inspire me because they're in the trenches with me, and you know, coming out of an audition and maybe it didn't go so well, but they're picking themselves back up and going out and trying the next one, or you know, or having a contract that is challenging for them vocally, and then you know, being able to, you know, recover from that. So I honestly I get really inspired by the people I work with, and some of my friends.
And I mean, the people that you work with, like in the industry, they like know what it's like to be in the industry too. So it's cool to have that support system.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how do you work on self-confidence in the industry? Because like, as I mentioned earlier, like auditioning is a full-time job for you all basically. And
Mhm.
it's kind of like a job interview where it's like you're waiting to hear back all the time, yes or no, and you're like, well, if I get a no, then it's gonna like, then I'm gonna overthink it.
It is, it's so challenging, and it's definitely a journey, you know, and it's one that like I think we're always going to be on just as humans, you know, we're always going to have things we're scared about and nervous about. um I'll say that, I mean, everyone says this, but it really is so true, is like not making it, trying to not make it personal, you know. Like if you don't get something, it's so easy to be like, oh, it's because i'm not I'm not talented enough, I'm not cute enough, I'm not whatever enough. But sometimes it really is just, you know, oh, we casted someone and we need someone of the same height and she just happens to not be that height. Or, you know, I we really liked her, but we already found someone like right before her, and you know, whatever. It can be so many things that have nothing to do with you and your talent. So like really forcing yourself to remember that. Um and also like like a more practical thing that I'll share is like when I'm in an audition, I try to turn like make it a positive experience. And like one of the and it's so easy to kind of fall into that like comparison trap of like, oh gosh, like are they kicking their leg higher than mine? Is their outfit nicer? Like I like, you know, what am I wearing? Like, you know, and kind of get into that negative mindset. And so like a practical thing that I do in like auditions when I'm starting to feel that is like I will try and create kind of like a camaraderie in my own mind by I will like try and look at everyone around me and compliment them, because then it turns into less of like, oh yeah, we're all like vying for a part, and it's more like we're all having this experience together. And so I'll be like, wow, I really loved how she did that turn, I really love his shirt, like that's so cool. And it kind of turns the environment from less of like a hostile, you know, like fear-based mentality into one of more like positivity and joy. And you know, like we're all enjoying the love of theater together right now.
We get to cheer each other on.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And it's yeah, and it can be challenging some days, so like really just like forcing that practice in. It's like, okay, brain, come back, let's come back from that negative place.
I mean, what a cool experience to get to like watch all these talented people in one industry in like one room.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
as easy as it is to compare to like, I mean, comparing is something that I think we all do, but as easy as it is to compare, it's so cool to watch like other talented people and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much
Yes.
talent. I'm so lucky.
Right. And to remind yourself that like oh my gosh, I'm in this room too. You
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
like there's so many like wonderful, talented people around me, but like I am also in this room. Like we are all talented. We all have something to offer and something to give. And yeah.
And we're all here for a reason.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So before I ask my last question, where can people follow you on social media to keep up with what you're doing, to keep up with the Wicked tour?
Yes, absolutely. My Instagram is at Tara Kostmayer, Tara, Kostmayer with a K. And yeah, and that's where you can find me and keep up with all my little travels.
Woo! And I'll post the link in the description below. And lastly, do you have anything that you would want to promote, whether it's Wicked related or not, or do you just want to like tell people to come and see Wicked on tour?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say come see Wicked on tour. Yeah, we're having what was I going to say? Sorry. Yeah, we're having a great time here in Houston, and we're going to be in Atlanta next. We're going to be, you know,
All the
in
humid.
yeah, all the humid. It's going to be a hot rest of the year. We're going to be hanging out in the South. We're going to like North and South Carolina too. So, you know, if you're in the area, like come on down and come see the show.
Yes, I miss you all on the West Coast. I was like looking at like the where I could go see it in the next couple months, and I'm like, it's literally not coming anywhere to the West Coast this year.
I know, you and me both. My whole family is over in California. They're like, when are you coming to California? And I'm like, I'll get back to you.
Not sure,
Yeah.
unsure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like thinking, I'm like, where's somewhere that's not expensive to travel to because I haven't seen Wicked in a bit.
Yes, yes, I know. A lot of my friends are coming to Atlanta, so I don't know if that's because they got some good plane tickets, but maybe that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna, I've never been to the Carolinas, so that is not my, I don't know. I've heard they're beautiful.
Yeah, and I hear that the cities that we're going to, Greenville and Durham, are really great too. I've never been, but people really seem to like them. So
Yes, so I might have to check that out. I don't know.
yeah.
I'll let you know. But it was so good to chat with you on this. Thank you so much for joining me. I am
Oh
so honored. I love talking about Wicked. So
my-
I feel like Wicked is the show I've talked about most on my podcast, which is
oh,
fun.
amazing. I mean, I love talking about Wicked, so this was great.
Thanks for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.